Fruit of kindness, ~. The first day I resumed at Global Tech felt surreal. I stood before the giant glass building again, this time not as a nervous applicant but as an employee. The security man greeted me with a cheerful, "Good morning, Mo," and handed me a temporary staff tag. I almost laughed. Mo. Me. The same woman who had spent months begging for jobs and sleeping on a floor mattress. Inside, the office buzzed with quiet activity. People moved about confidently, dressed smartly, their shoes clicking on the polished floors. The HR assistant gave me a tour, the open workstations, the conference rooms, the cafeteria where the smell of freshly brewed coffee drifted through the air. I thought of my cousin's cramped kitchen in Mushin, where we boiled water on a single burner stove, and I nearly wept from gratitude. When I was introduced to the rest of the staff, they greeted me warmly, though I could sense their curiosity, who was this new hire the regional director had personally recommended. I took my seat at my small but comfortable desk, touched the computer gently, and whispered a prayer. Oloran, Ion. Jekimi Dada. God, thank you. Help me do this work well. Learning the ropes. The first few weeks were a whirlwind. I had to learn new software, understand company policies, and get used to working in a fast-paced environment. Sometimes I stayed late, taking notes and practicing until I understood everything. The director, my former boy at the gate, would check on me, smiling like a proud younger brother. One afternoon, after a particularly intense meeting, he asked me to join him in his office. His office was spacious, with a view of the Lagos Lagoon. He gestured for me to sit. "Aunty teacher," he said, he had started calling me that on my first day, "I want to do something. I want to create a scholarship fund in your name." I blinked in surprise. "In my name?" "Yes," he said firmly. "The same way you gave me a future, I want us to give other children the same chance. We will pay WAEC fees for students who cannot afford them. Not just one or two, as many as we can." Tears filled my eyes. I could only nod. That week, we began planning. We called it Aunty Teachers Fund. The company approved the budget, and soon we were working with schools in Oyo State to identify bright but needy students. The first time I traveled back to Ibadan on official duty to launch the program, I felt goosebumps. The event was held in a secondary school hall. Rows of students sat in their worn-out uniforms, some barefoot, all watching me with wide eyes. As I spoke to them about hope and education, I saw myself in their faces. I saw the boy at my gate again. My voice shook as I told them, "No matter where you are coming from, your present does not define your future. Someone believed in me, and I am here to believe in you." When we handed out the scholarship forms, the students screamed with joy, and some of them knelt to thank us. I went behind the hall and wept quietly. The transformation. Within a year, the fund had paid for hundreds of students' WAEC and NICO fees. Some of them began writing me letters, shy, heartfelt notes saying, "Aunty teacher, thank you for giving me a chance." Every time I read one, I would smile through tears. The boy who once came to my gate had become a bridge, and now, through him, I was helping to build many other bridges. My own life was changing too. I was earning a salary that allowed me to live with dignity. I moved out of my cousin's room into a small apartment of my own in Suralea. I bought a gas cooker, a bed with a real mattress, and even a small fridge. The first night I slept in my own space, I turned on the light and just stared around the room, whispering, Boba me. Thank you, my father." But perhaps the greatest transformation was internal. I had regained my confidence. The woman who once walked under the Lagos sun dropping CVs now stood before corporate boards, speaking about youth empowerment. I began mentoring young girls, teaching them to value education and never give up. A seat at the table. One day, the director called me to his office again. "There's a board meeting coming up," he said. "I want you to attend." You are not just staff, Aunty teacher. You are part of this vision. That first board meeting felt intimidating. The room was full of powerful people, men in suits, women in designer dresses. But when I entered, the director smiled and gestured to the seat beside him. Anywhere I sit, you will sit, he reminded me. When it was my turn to speak, I shared about the scholarship program, the impact on rural communities, and the letters from students. The board members applauded. One elderly man said, "Madam, you are not just an employee. You are a movement." I left that room feeling taller than ever. A life rebuilt. Months later, I traveled back to Ibadan again, this time for a different reason. I had bought a small piece of land near our old house. I built a simple bungalow where girls from nearby villages could stay safely while completing their secondary education. We called it Al-Iriti, House of Hope. Every weekend, I would sit with them under the mango tree and tell them stories. Stories of my mother. Stories of Ibadan. Stories of the day a boy stood at my gate. And every time, I ended with the same Yoruba proverb. Anfani reki ipe titi laisan. A good deed never goes unrewarded. The girls would nod, their faces glowing with hope. The legacy begins. Now, when I look back, I see that the 19,500 Nigerian nairas I once thought was a burden was actually a seed. It has grown into a tree, and that tree now provides shade for many. The boy I barely knew had returned to my life not just with a job offer but with an entire destiny. And so, every time the director calls me Aunty teacher in front of the staff, and everyone smiles, I smile too, because I remember the gate, the dust, the trembling boy, and I know God was weaving a story bigger than my pain.